I served with Margaret Lovejoy and Sarah Legal on a task force last year. These women live, one of the reasons I'm glad they're here to speak is they know this issue professionally, but they also live it passionately and address it passionately. So Margaret Lovejoy is the executive director and founder of The Family Place, and she has 16 years of experience working with homeless families. And in this community, if you want to know what's going on with family homelessness, which is our topic, she's the go-to person, right? And Sarah, we know Sarah because she's our link to the St. Paul Council of Churches and helps us make our contributions with Project Home. And so she manages Project Home.
Margaret represents the day of families facing homelessness in Ramsey County, and I represent what can happen during the evenings. And Margaret started Project Home, which is the overflow shelter for homeless families here in Ramsey County. By overflow, I mean we do have one main shelter in our county. It's called the Family Services Center, and it's run by Catholic Charities for Ramsey County. And they have 65 beds. When they opened up, they were this awful little shelter downtown and didn't have room for hardly anyone. And then they finally moved out to the Maplewood area. Now they're up to 65 beds for families. Back then they started at 40, 45. It was low. And so they've grown over the years. And Project Home, though, providing the overflow for that main county shelter, has really grown with it. Back when Margaret first started Project Home, that first year, the beds were utilized less than 2,000 times, and that's all we were needed. It was a good fit for the overflow issue. 2001, and that's when I became the director after Margaret left to start the day center. Our bed nights, what do we call our bed utilization? Our beds were used that year right around 5,000 times. So you can see it had just grown in those few years from about 98, 97 to 2001, July 1st to the end of June every year. Our beds were used 13,019 times.
Wow.
So that's way more than double. So.
Family as an adult who has legal custody of a minor. So Sarah and I get single parents, two-parent families, grandparents with grandchildren. We've had siblings with their siblings, cousins. If you're an adult and you have legal custody of a minor, so we always have minors.
But I wanted to make the point that every one of those 13,000 beds involved a child in some way.
Yeah, but we've seen a growth in single dads and two-parent families, but single moms are still predominantly, single mother head of households are predominantly what we see. 2/3 of our guests are children. So if you can imagine, all the shelter beds are full. And that's like 60% to 70% are children. More than half of those children that you have in shelter at any given time are age 5 and under.
Most of the time, the moms haven't completed their education, and they've never held a job, and so it's really a tough life that little one comes into.
Don't speak down to them, but also speak with basic terms. You're talking about education. I think I interviewed last week was the Wilder study of all the families that I sat down with. There wasn't a one this year that had a high school diploma. I was just kind of shocked. But usually there's at least a few, and there's sometimes a few that actually have a little bit of a college. But this year, and who knows, I'm talking a very small scale out of all the families we had, the ones that I personally interviewed. Education isn't an opportunity like it used to be. And for young moms especially, those opportunities to stay on MFIP, which is our welfare program here in Minnesota, and actually get some help for education are really dwindling. The welfare changes. We didn't talk about CAP babies back then. That's a term in the social services world we know now. A CAP baby means that they had a baby after they went on welfare. There's no additional funds for them. They will get some additional funds for food, but that's it. To come down and spend an evening, come sleep overnight, and spend some time with the families that Margaret and I serve every day. It will change you in ways you never expected, and all for the good, I would say.
When it started out, we didn't have a lot of volunteers, and a lot of nights I stayed overnight. Last week, I went into work, and this little kid said, "I like your shoes." I said, "Thank you." I said, "I like your shoes too." He says, "I like your pants." "I like your pants too." He liked my shirt, I liked his. And it ended, I said, "But you know what? I love your dimples." And that's what keeps me floating. The conversations that I have with the littlers, with the middlers, with the olders, and with the parents. The pastor today was talking about stewardship and giving of your talents. And I thought that's so appropriate for what we're asking of you, to give of your talents. We had a couple of tour groups coming through, and they came at the lunch hour. And what we do, we say to the families, lunch is at 11:30, and at 11:15, it's like, okay, everybody's got to clean up. And everyone pitches in, gets everything put back. And when the tour group came in at 12 o'clock, they couldn't believe how organized the place was. Of course, if they come through at 10 o'clock, it would have looked a lot different, because the kids have everything pulled out. But that's part of the glory of both of these programs, is developing and maintaining community. That the first time when they come into us, we don't know how long they've been on that road until we start to talk to them. We don't know what has transpired. Has it been a week? Has it been 2 days? Has it been 2 years? Has this been happening for the last 10 years?
One other thing I wanted to mention, this is a different topic, but any of you who sign up with Lynn to volunteer, and I know some of you familiar faces, you've been to Project Home before, one of the things we're starting that's new for families is we have a new snack program. And we work with Margaret and some folks with Healthcare for the Homeless, a nutritionist and their head nurse and director. Margaret serves wonderful meals during the day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and snack. And so they get wonderful food opportunities. But when they come at night, they still are hungry. And little stomachs can get hungry quick, and teenagers, they're always hungry. And then in the morning, because the mornings at shelter are very, very busy. You know, in the morning, if you think of getting kids off to school, you probably think you're getting them up in your own home, and they've already maybe packed their bag the night before. For our kids, mornings are very different. They're getting up in a shelter setting, in a communal shelter setting. So I feel really blessed when I get up in the morning. It's just me and my kids in the house. My husband's already gone to work. And it's just a very controlled atmosphere. Getting kids ready to go for school and shelter is not a controlled atmosphere at all. And it's very crazy to try to get them out the door on the bus, and then also back to the day center. And then from there, Margaret helps them get to the right school. If they're going to school, the little ones, maybe it's, you know, Head Start, or maybe it's just able to stay there and hang out for the day. But mornings can be chaotic, so we also serve a little bit of a breakfast in the morning to kind of supplement the breakfast at the family place. Our kids, even though those school agers do qualify for free breakfast at school, many of them don't make it because just of all the transportation steps just to get to school every day. It was all around learning more and more about toxic stress. And like Margaret said earlier, when we first get to meet the families in their journey, we don't know how long this journey has been in deep poverty before they came to us. And what we're finding is the stresses that they've been under when we get to see them have been great. And it's nothing like the stress you or I might face. You know, I talk about stress. There's good stress, right? You're preparing for something, and it gives you a little extra pump of energy that you need. But then there's the bad stress where it can actually be detrimental and, high blood pressure for some of us, some of us who are stress eaters, we eat more than we should, that sort of thing. But then toxic stress is a whole nother ballpark. Toxic stress is the actual deterioration of their brains and their bodies because it's a long, sustained stress. For parents, it's where are we sleeping tonight? Whose couch can we go sleep on? And before that, it was, how long can we sleep in this apartment because the eviction papers have already come. And even before that, it was, I can just make rent this month. So for our families, the stress isn't just a sudden thing, it's a long buildup of stress. And one of the things we can do is fuel their bodies well so that they can combat that stress, but also work that much quicker to get out of homelessness.
Our meals, we balance because of knowing that we need to serve more nutritious meals, but we also need to remember that food is also comfort. So we can't change it all. I mean, this is a big change.
It is a big change.
And we have done a lot. We're doing a lot different in our food service program. More salads, less white bread, more helpings of fruits and vegetables, especially fruits. We have advocates that help the families understand their need for stability and to find employment and to help them arrange housing. We have, of course, our food program. We have a laundry service. We have showers so that they can be clean. We make sure that any child coming into our center that's school age, within 3 days, they are back in their home school or registered in a new school. Right now, we are looking at changing our playroom from a hodgepodge of toys to a more organized way of understanding the discipline of play through Montessori methods. And so we're starting to reorganize our room. And it's not just for the children. It's so that the parents that are there, because the parents have to be with the kids, the parents that are there will start to understand process also, because a lot of our parents have not someplace that hasn't happened for them. And so our furniture is arranged so that they will be watching their child as they're maybe doing flower arrangement. And then another staff will be explaining to the parent, this is the process. They have to put on the apron, they have to get the vase, they have to get the water, here's the cutter, cut the flowers, so it's the whole process. For the adults, I call it making a tuna casserole. Whenever you make a tuna casserole, there is a process. If you just say, poof, tuna casserole, you're not bewitched, it's not going to happen. You have to have the right ingredients. Does that mean going to the store and making decisions? Do you want large noodles, skinny noodles, round noodles? What do you want? Do you want canned tuna with oil, with water, in that little plastic pouch, which I haven't tried yet? Do you want cream of onion soup? Do you want to make your own cream of whatever? Cream of mushroom? It is the whole process of making decisions and choices. That is part of what we do throughout our life. And so often we see parents that make decisions solely on going from problem A to hopefully solution Z and not going through all the steps. We hope that families will learn is there's a timeliness about, there's an expectation about timeliness. We serve meals at certain times, and we make sure that the food is there at 9, 11:30, snack at 2, and dinner at 4:30. Those are the dinner hours. They have to be there by 5 o'clock to take the bus. There are a lot of our families have said, I'll be there about, I'll go in for lunch about noon, or I'll think about dinner at 5. And that's not the real world. The real American world is you got to be on time. But the other piece, when you think about the children and the stress that they're under and brain development, that their brains are developing around problems and issues that we find are counterculture. That mom is always hollering or screaming, and that becomes a norm because that's how those synapses are coming together in the child's brain. And that worries me greatly, that what kind of world are we building and planning when there are things that as a community we can be doing around poverty. I was at a conference, we were at a conference this January, and the main speaker said homelessness is not the issue, poverty is.